sit here with me? Yeah. I'm right here.
So all the duct tape, yep. No. Teeth.
You were saying that here the
Oh, go for it. That's awesome. Yeah, we're gonna start.
The drive to first.
Am I speaking? Can everybody hear me now? That's amazing.
Well, they all have handles on them. Get those on the delegates.
Hey, Taylor. Taylor.
What's your name?
Taylor, will you join us in the Trusted Third Party Corporation?
Oh, you going to the party?
What do you need?
I'd like you to join us in the Trusted Third Party Corporation.
Oh, you want a banana costume? Grab a banana costume. Yeah, you can grab a banana costume right now.
Join the dark side.
Yeah.
So can we got Griff on here?
Join the dark side, Taylor. Join the dark
Is
side.
Armand in charge of it?
Decentralization is a fool's errand, Taylor. Join the dark side.
I just tweeted the.
We don't really want the live stream on the screen.
Yeah. No.
We have another idea.
It's down there.
Check. Yeah.
If everyone could go to Twitter and retweet the live stream link. The live stream link has been put up. It is on Twitter/Doge Preacher. Doge Preacher on Twitter. Retweet the live stream link. Repost it to other social media. We want this watched. We want this loved.
If anyone knows where the power band armbands ended up today, please let me know. Truck? Is the van anywhere nearby?
hop in there.
We could snag those, please.
So right beside
For
Decentral.
any delegates who might be in need. So, whoever goes to Cam's van, please grab everyone you can from Decentral and make sure the door is bolted locked, please. And thank you. That endless Doge gift? Yeah. Like that.
Here we go again. If you want to go to the video, this is like the art and all that. Put 4 fingers here.
Can you be here just in case we have trouble?
Slept in this morning.
It's a nice pea suit.
And like, need a pea suit. I just passed out.
How many fingers? 3. 4.
Oh yeah, it's like
There's a lot of things.
like an hour later.
So, is this just Google? Can you open a browser?
Yeah, and the browser feels like 30. Yeah, it's only 5 seconds. So it pops in the bedroom.
Don't want to pop more on your plate, but research is the title sponsor for this event. So you're gonna, can you do a shout out? And can you just shout out to in general the Doge sponsors? Be like they're all up and they make this ridiculous thing. Check them out. Thank you.
Yeah. Alright, so going down the street with like this old guy. We have
Do you have a plug-in for it?
we leave it tomorrow, Monday. Monday night.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a way to get it full screen?
Yes. Hashtag Chris Pratt.
We left in 5 minutes outside the door. Oh my god.
Space Jam.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Still got the price tag on
It
it.
was.
It's all washed off.
You had it.
Nobody would buy them. Why do they exist though? Well, they're really. Wow. Running those? Running in the snow, they're actually incredible. Like in like 6-inch deep snow, like you can like trash it. Full fucking balled up.
Not sure.
How goes it? Ready?
Hey Gary, how do you feel?
Float like a butterfly. Sing with
Feel alright.
You ready for your speech tonight?
I guess so. Yeah, everything's coming together.
great that you can
A little behind schedule.
Oh, look at this. We got Doge on the screen here.
Yeah. I got more.
I think you would pull under blue string.
Oh, is that planned?
Hey Armand, say hi.
Yeah, hi.
Hello.
Oh.
Test.
All this food out of my
Attention, I have misplaced the speakers list order, so if anyone sees a piece of paper with about 20 names on it,
You had it?
give it to me.
Is that when you first bought it?
Oh, what? Oh, so it's green.
A lot of subsidy over here.
Testing, testing.
Testing.
Testing, testing.
Yeah, someone just
I'd like to request a referendum.
invite someone in off the street.
On what? I have no idea. But I just wanted to use the microphone.
State of the Doge. They were just saying they had to
So
get
basically,
it's almost saying what are they gonna get them?
after you talk, you can go to the art gallery.
We're gonna get
Yeah, there's the jazz stuff.
costume.
Yeah.
You walk this way?
In so many places, yeah, I did.
Mitch has
Yeah, we wanted to get those on as many as the delegates.
One, two.
Up there and down the stairs.
Okay. All right, stop rolling.
Yeah, Sweden Mark's going to take a leap.
Just as an operational announcement, there is fresh cold water on both sides of the room near both entrances. So feel free to. We have completely drained the one by that entrance, so it's getting refilled. But you know, the water in the back's getting lonely. So if you're thirsty and you're on that side of the room, go over by the sound booth, get yourself some cold water, because DogeCon spares no expense and gets you the freshest, tastiest water.
Thank you.
No, I think it's just like
Penguino, join the dark side.
Feeling good? For who?
Mike Kitt, is that you, Mike Kitt? Mike Kitt? Is that Mike Kitt in the cool Bitcoin t-shirt?
So guys, we're hoping to get ready in about 5 minutes here. Each of the delegates, when you're ready to talk, you just need to press the red button on your microphone. It will be then turned on. Please don't have it on until it's your turn. And we're hoping each person can stand up to talk, but we're not sure if that will work. So you want to? Okay. Yeah, just stand up at the beginning. And you have 5 minutes. When it gets to 30 seconds from 5 minutes, Alex is going to he'll clap just like that. And he has the power to shut you off, so don't go over 5 minutes, please.
This guy with the stop sign.
The centralized power in the hands of Doge Alex.
Hello, everybody. Hello? Is it on?
Check, check. Yeah.
The music must be off, please. It's time to end the music.
No music, please. You will be removed from the building, sir.
This is a no fun zone.
All right, everybody. I have one announcement to make. This is very important. Today we ran a game called Doge Quest: The Hunt for the One True Chain. That game lasted a little longer than expected. It went for 3.5 hours. We will be reading the entire story at tomorrow's events. You do not want to miss it. Also, the teams never got a chance to see the epilogue, I believe. It's an amazing ending. So, if I could have the leader of Team Dogecoin and the leader of Team Penguino, please stand up. Jackson's not in the room, removes the drama. The leader of Team Penguino and the leader of Team Dogecoin, which is, I think, Jackson's team? Team EGOD. All right. So after 3.5 hours, it actually came down to 10-second difference of the ending. Yeah, we had to double check the clock on this one. The winner of the first ever Doge Quest Hunt for the One True Chain was Team Penguino.
Check, check, check. Check, check, check.
Yeah, dude, it was tight.
Just wait. Should probably get going. Just this. Yeah. So Alex, you're gonna be up here.
Yeah, I got one over there with a cutoff button. Yeah.
It's not till like an hour.
Okay, perfect.
Do you want to tell them right now?
No, I'll just say right before I start calling.
Colin.
Or, yeah, I asked him to be by name.
So you're gonna say.
Just so everyone knows, when we begin, after Gary's talk, we are going to move into taking turns. I will announce the name of the next speaker. That speaker will need to stand up so everyone can see who they are. Then you will sit down and talk for 5 minutes. If you hear a clap, you only have 30 seconds left. You may yield the rest of your time if you do not use it all up. And so it begins.
You guys ready to start? Pardon me? Okay, awesome. First of all, big shout out to Presearch, who is our title sponsor tonight, and Colin Pape, who is someone I admire, building an amazing project and a huge supporter of the community. Also, everyone else who sponsored and contributed to making this day happen and the entire DogeCon event. It's it's pretty awesome to be here. I've written some opening words. Comrades, thank you for joining us on this historic evening for the inaugural State of the Decentralized Union address. Our objective tonight is to proffer radical decentralization as an idea whose time has come. to pitch this bold new revolution as an acceptance movement, not a resistance, and to awaken as many people as possible to the notion that we now have the tools to build a completely new world, one which will unite rather than divide, empower rather than exploit, and forever maximize freedom, creation, and loving connection. For the purposes of tonight, we define decentralization as the decentralization of power. In the beginning, decentralized tribes lived in harmony with nature and according to their own light. With the dawn of agriculture came the rise of cities and the need for centralized power structures to govern, police, and provide services. While this had many benefits, it was also not without dire physical and spiritual consequences. All social operating systems were based on coercion rather than inspiration. Power became increasingly centralized in the hands of the few, and warfare, depression, and dissociation were rampant. Disconnected. Peak centralization was reached in the 20th century, the most violent and destructive in all human history. But then, with the advent of the internet, and then the blockchain, which will unlock its true power and promise, the modern decentralization revolution began. Aiding this were rapid advances in 3D printing, solar power, crowdfunding, autonomous vehicles, agriculture, water purification techniques, and the open source movement. The possibility of creating globally networked peer-to-peer societies is now before us, and it is my belief, and that of many who have traveled here today, that our spiritual salvation depends upon it. We're only now starting to emerge from an interminable techno-cultural winter, from the dark ages to the dawning of a new human paradigm. Open source advances require no political coercion or argument. We simply build the new and route around institutions we deem illegitimate. We lead by inspiration and become the change we want to see. Decentralization is surely an idea whose time has come, but alongside the technical revolution, an evolution in consciousness will also be essential. Centralized power structures have left us divided, fearful, impoverished, demotivated, and disillusioned, endlessly bickering amongst ourselves and competing rather than cooperating. We must embrace open source ideas and ideals, recognize that we're all on the same team, and now possess the technology required to make teamwork possible on an interstellar scale. Our fight is not against each other. Our fight is against the notion that we don't have the power to come together right now and build the world we want to live in. It's time to align and conquer, to rally change from within, to be excellent to one another, to embrace Doge consciousness and build a civilization that will be the envy of all the cosmos. Assembled before me are 24 interstellar delegates who will now project a vision of what a decentralized future might look and feel like. Please put your hands together for this amazing panel of radical decentralists.
And as a reminder, if everyone could stand up when I call your name before you start speaking so we can all see who you are. First, we will hear from Mike.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Nassery, urban futurist, human from Earth. It's an honor to be here speaking on the topic of decentralized agriculture. The fragmentation of power is irreversible and inevitable. These are the words of the geopolitical writer Parag Khanna. He is alluding to a trend of the degradation of power towards functional regions as defined by the supply lines that support them. A quick look back at the past could help us better understand where we are at today. The story of agriculture is the story of civilization. The knowledge of hunting and gathering, plant and animal domestication was spread on an individual to individual basis. This decentralized but inherently slow intergenerational transfer of knowledge is still occurring across much of humanity. Ownership of agricultural lands was always the centralizing force in agriculture. Emperors, kings, and popes' wealth was built on the taxes they levied from the farmers who worked this land. Over the last 150 years, we have gone from the vast majority of the human population being engaged as farmers to less than 5% of the populations in more developed nations engaged in farms. Agriculture is the least digitized of all industries. And even though Excel was created in 1985, up to 69% of field farmers are still haven't moved beyond pencil and paper. What this means is that agriculture has the opportunity to leapfrog generations of technological deployments that have already happened in most other high-tech sectors. Digital technologies enable humanity to accelerate that traditional form of transfer of knowledge from individual to individual faster than previously. Blockchain, distributed ledger technologies, and the Internet of Things will transform the agricultural supply chains of today into a more transparent and value-driven state. Today, we are seeing heavy investment into the digitization and therefore decentralization of agricultural technologies. In the fields, we see affordable UAV and satellite data collection, enabling farmers to do more with less, make better decisions, and move towards robotic automation. In greenhouses, which democratized and decentralized ideal growing conditions, we see sensors being heavily deployed to support cloud-based computational operational systems. Supplementing these established farming practices is a new era of urban and peri-urban farming. Vertical farms are starting to appear inside and at the edge of cities, providing significantly fresher produce than what is shipped across the continent from the Central Valley of California. Community gardens are re-engaging people with their neighbors and agricultural know-how that much of us have become disconnected from. At home, people are growing food on their balconies, in their kitchens, and converting grass lawns and decorative gardens into micro farms. Plant-based meat substitutes are growing in popularity as more and more people seek an alternative to eating meat from factory-farmed livestock. Cellular culture or lab-grown meat is an emerging field that will produce cruelty-free meats by growing only muscle tissues as opposed to entire animals. The terroir of wine is even being decentralized through companies formulating wines that are completely synthetic. The craft brewery movement is a great example of how other sectors within food will disintermediate the centralized supply chains that we all grew up knowing and using. Open source software is one of the key components of decentralization. Farm management software is a booming area that just got a boost last week from the deployment of a new open API standard for protocols for better farm-to-farm communication and data sharing. Food computing is an invention that came out of MIT's Media Lab in the last decade. And with this computerized hydroponics approach, we will eventually be able to create foods with better nutrition and flavor than can be achieved under outdoor conditions. CRISPR-Cas9 technologies are democratizing access to genetic modification. These new techniques allow unregulated subtraction of genes, providing us with a more reasonable approach to genetically modified crops. All of these advances are based on the decentralizing force of digital knowledge transfer that we see across the new global culture. Although centralized agriculture will likely always be around, these trends will transform our lives for the better, providing more resiliency for our communities, cities, and future crypto nations. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Liz.
Hello? Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Liz Halwage. I'm a DNA enthusiast and a decentralization maximalist. I've always been fascinated by genetics. Humans are the expression of DNA combining and recombining itself over millions of years. That 1% of difference between all of us is all it takes to create the diversity in thought and appearance that you see among us. That's why I was all over genetic testing when it first came out to the public. I'm sure most of you have tried the 23andMe package. It allows people to easily and affordably access information about their health. So all you have to do is spin a tube, and a few weeks later, your entire genome is available to you. This used to take literally millions of dollars and years of research to accomplish, but now it's ready and available to the public, to the common person. It's had huge potential in decentralizing healthcare, huge potential in giving people the ability to take control of their personal health, and also huge potential in allowing us to take care of each other from what we learn from ourselves. I'll use depression as an example since many of us in the room have some experience of it. When I was diagnosed with clinical depression, I went in and I was prescribed a bunch of SSRIs. I was told that it's a trial and error. They don't know exactly, there's so many factors that come into play that you just have to try it before you know it works for you. And there was just a fog of around my head every day when I was walking around. I had no ability to control my thoughts more than before when I saw the doctor. And if I had access to my genetic information, I would have more of an ability to choose what drug to take. And of course, even specialists, psychologists, they'd spend years in school learning about this specific domain, but even still, it's so complicated and it's impossible for them to know exactly how to treat you. And so back to my point is that access to information is incredibly important in healthcare. And genetic testing is a clear example of how decentralizing information can help make the world a better place. Of course, this raises issues about privacy. Of course, this raises the issue of should healthcare be socialized? Should it be privatized? What are the regulations surrounding all of the drugs that are being prescribed? But as decentralists, it's our role to tell people what to focus on. As decentralists, it's easy for us to see everything that is wrong with the current system. But as decentralists, it's also our job to remind people of the power that they have. You have the power to control what you can put in your body. You have control in developing rituals for yourself to take a more proactive approach in your health rather than a reactive one. And so let's focus less on who's in power at the state level and focus more on who's in power at the personal level. If there is a technology like genetic testing that allows people to understand themselves better, let's do more to promote that and do more to create more technology that perpetuates this. Thank you very much.
Next, we'll be hearing from Jackson Palmer.
Hey everybody, I'm Jackson, the Doge guy, I guess. Thanks for coming. I'm going to talk about decentralized transportation and what's been happening in that space. As most people know, it's not available here in Vancouver for some reason, but Uber, Lyft, and other companies like that have decentralized ride sharing over the last few years. But unfortunately, as we've seen, that has kind of come back to centralization. And these companies control the app, they can spy on their users, and they can also enforce policies which might be judgmental towards certain types of users, like the disabled, for instance. There have been many people that have tried to decentralize this, put Uber on a blockchain. But it's hard to do this because companies like Uber need to exist for things like background checks and to navigate a lot of legal red tape that exists. And so it's hard to do this in a decentralized way because you're dealing with the motor industry and you're dealing with roads, which are hard. One thing that has kind of happened over the last 6 to 12 months is decentralized personal transport, which instead of putting you in the seat of somebody else's car, it lets you kind of maintain your sovereignty and controlling your own ride. But that ride is rented out to you. And what I'm talking about is the kind of scooter, revolution that has been taking a lot of places like San Francisco by storm. And for those that are unaware, these are dockless electric scooters that are very energy efficient. that you can pick up, rent with an app, and then take anywhere and just drop it off without having to dock at a centralized location. This is really cool because you can, especially in a city environment, you can have them scattered out across the entire city, and it works very well for last mile transport. Some companies like Bird in this space have already decentralized things like charging. So you can switch the app over into charging mode, and you can go and, it's like playing Pokemon Go. You can go and pick up these scooters and charge them overnight and earn money for recharging them. And they've also started to decentralize the repair of the scooters as well by training people how to do that. And so it becomes this really nice closed loop ecosystem. There's several companies that are doing this right now, but it's fairly centralized, obviously, as they're the ones that are controlling the supply. But in the future, there's totally, you could see this operating as an autonomous organization on a blockchain or in a peer-to-peer way. There's no background checks required because you're not getting in somebody's car. There's also less regulation because, it's not, you're in bike lanes. It's better for the environment, obviously. And it puts you back in control. So I think this is really an area that people should be looking into as we decentralize this stuff, but also maintain a level of autonomy and sovereignty with ourselves, and where we're, I think getting in the back of some random person that you've found on the blockchain's car could be a little bit scary. The other thing that's happening in decentralized or kind of advancements in transportation are autonomous vehicles, and I'm talking about self-driving cars. This technology is evolving, but it's mostly centralized to the companies that are developing that technology, whether it's the Teslas, the Googles, et cetera. Apparently Apple's getting in on it as well. And one of the problems with this also is that it keeps cars on the roads in cities, and roads are obviously not the greatest thing for the environment. The centralization is also potentially an attack vector there. And so it becomes a question of how do you decentralize autonomous vehicles in a way that doesn't kind of backfire on you. And it also brings up some interesting ethical problems around the models and how they're being trained. Machine models have to be trained by somebody or from some sort of data set. And it gets back to that sovereignty point. How do you feel about giving control of your driving, or how good a driver you are, to an AI? And if that AI makes a mistake, is it actually your mistake? So there's some very interesting kind of ethical dilemmas there that we have to solve somehow. So that's decentralized or transportation. Yeah.
Next, we will hear from Brianna.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Brianna McNeil. I'm the Blockchain Product Manager at RightMesh. Today, I'm going to be speaking about the state of connectivity around the world, because if we want to achieve a decentralized state, nation, or world, people need to be connected. So I want you to first think about how you experience connectivity on a daily basis. Personally, I have a very privileged experience. I have an iPhone 8 Plus with a 12 gigabyte per month data plan. I have high-speed internet at my home and at work, and Vancouver itself has free Wi-Fi in many public areas. Canada has net neutrality and no internet shutdowns, and I'm essentially always connected even when I'm traveling. But my experience is not reality for the majority of people on our planet. It's estimated that 95% of all information in existence is digitized. That's a massive amount of information available to those who have the luxury of internet access. Unfortunately, most people do not benefit from the societal and economic benefits brought about by the internet. The reality is 56% of the world and nearly 4 billion people do not have access to connectivity. In 2015, the United Nations deemed internet accessibility as a basic human right. So the power of putting connectivity in the hands of the unconnected cannot be understated. It's estimated that connecting the unconnected has the potential to lift 500 million people out of poverty. Despite the fact that so many people are unconnected, many people do have smartphones, and that number is expected to continue to increase. By 2020, there will be approximately 6 billion smartphones worldwide. A major barrier to extending connectivity is due to centralized ISPs and traditional telecommunications infrastructure. These raise a number of different challenges. Affordability is the main barrier to internet adoption. 96% of the world's population is within range of a 2G signal, yet data prices will need to fall by about 90% to be considered universally affordable. Additionally, centralized infrastructure also poses issues like lack of or no infrastructure if it's not profitable for a telco to build out in that region. There's also the issue of slower, overburdened networks in really densely populated cities, as well as natural disasters where physical infrastructure is very susceptible to damage and being completely wiped out. From a network interference perspective, internet shutdowns, net neutrality, and censorship all are ways in which governments and corporations can restrict access to connectivity for people around the world. So connectivity on a global scale cannot happen fast enough. Imagine we're at a school or university in China and we want to share notes in class with one another. We would probably be using WeChat and I would message to you the notes, but really that message goes through a Wi-Fi router to an ISP, to the cloud, to WeChat servers in China, all the way to the Chinese government who is admitted to monitoring all WeChat communications all the way back down the same path. If we are close to one another, why does this information need to travel through a complex and monitored path? We believe that this is wrong and unnecessary. A new approach is needed to efficiently and affordably connect the world, one that does not solely rely on us waiting for a telco to decide it's profitable to build new infrastructure. We should be able to connect from phone to phone directly and be able to share information in a cost-effective, easy way. With mesh networking, we can connect directly me to you, and we can do so across multiple phones if we're close enough. We can connect a classroom, an entire university campus, a township in Africa, or an island stricken by a hurricane with mesh networks. And this is RightMesh's mission. There's an incredible number of projects building admirable blockchain-based solutions for emerging markets, but before it will be possible to bring services to people, people need to have access to connectivity. Back in March, I traveled through South Africa for research and partnership discussions, and in Johannesburg, I heard one of my favorite terms and philosophies. It came from the word Ubuntu, which roughly means I am because of you. I like to think of it as meaning we are all connected, and what you can do can impact not only your community, but it can also impact the whole world. Connectivity is the prerequisite for a decentralized world. And without connectivity, all the great solutions that we talk about today and all other places in the world will only be meant for those who are connected. Over half the world is unconnected, and we believe that mesh networks have the potential to bring millions of new users online and bring them the socioeconomic benefits of the internet and blockchain solutions. Thank you.
Next, we will be hearing from Drew.
Hi, everyone. My name is Drew Glover. I'm co-founder of Bit National and active member of Tom and Gary's Decentralized Dance Party. I'm speaking on finance tonight. So finance is a significant, complex component of society that has existed for thousands of years. Since the inception of centralized banking, there has been a need for change. As it stands now, the majority of the population is being dragged along a road of rampant inflation, inequality, and the current system is ripe with corruption. Henry Ford once said, "It is well enough that the people of the nation do not understand how our banking and monetary system is ran, for if they did, there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning." Decentralized cryptocurrencies that function on public open source blockchains are a significant leap forward, enabling universal questioning of this intentionally complex centralized system. However, it requires a growing number of groups like us to aid in the transition from the archaic system that is centralized banking. Ford understood the true nature of centralized banking and how it could enslave the people who make up the most prominent sector of the economy in the world forever. It works like this. Centralized banking is nothing more than a group of private banks which charge interest on money that never existed. Governments print billions of dollars worth of interest-bearing government bonds, take them to the central bank, and the central bank accepts them and places billions of dollars in their checking accounts, and the governments write checks for billions of dollars. Where was this $1 billion created before the central bank touched a computer that made the entry? It didn't exist. We allow this private banking system to create money out of absolutely nothing. All of it comes as loans to the governments, and they charge interest on it forever. The bank collects interest on the government's own money. This summary is of a highly complex system that may be oversimplified, but it's accurate. The system has survived due to the fact that the elite few who understand it will either be so interested in its profits or so dependent on its favors that there will be no opposition, while on the other hand, the great body of people that don't comprehend this system will bear its burden without complaint, unless they see a better option with a brighter future. None of these individuals will be quick to stray from the system that has been in place and maintains the status quo. Possibly they don't know how bad it really is. Things can be different now. The open source revolution has given rise to the first forms of money that cannot be controlled by any overbearing entity. Bitcoin was created in 2009. There is no counterfeiting, no rampant inflation, no quantitative easing, and it's fully transparent. Bitcoin, being open source, has enabled thousands of alternative cryptocurrencies to be created with unique features and benefits for niche markets around the world. This continues to accelerate at a growing pace. But how do these people coming into this industry access this new exciting world? People appreciate things that are tangible. They understand ATMs and bank branches and appreciate more traditional services. The nature of how Bitcoin works causes a gap in the mainstream society where many people don't easily understand how this magical internet money can only be used on a real day-to-day monetary, can only not be used as a real day-to-day monetary instrument, but also revolutionize the banking system as it stands. Bridging this gap is one of the biggest challenges towards the adoption of peer-to-peer finance. The more people can relate and understand to the societal benefit of using decentralized currencies, the faster we can flourish together as a civilization. This movement can fundamentally shift power from the hands of few to the hands of many. As said by Buckminster Fuller, you never change things by fighting against the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the old model obsolete. Similar to when the horse and carriage rode on muddy trails, we built roads for cars. Cryptocurrency is a Ferrari, and we will continue building those roads. We are here today to shed light on the possibilities of a more innovative future, to be leaders advocating for the future that moves away from the old and broken systems and paves the way for newness and positive change. Cryptocurrency ATMs provide easy and instant access to these digital forms of money. There are thousands of them around the world, and they're even beginning to appear in international airports like Schiphol in Amsterdam, where you can now exchange local euros for global Bitcoin. Those that are for the more tech savvy, hundreds of online exchanges exist in various jurisdictions. However, like anything, it is advised to do your research before utilizing these platforms. Cryptocurrencies are similar to cash, and there are responsibilities that come with the freedom of being able to be your own bank. As the industry advances rapidly, methods of engaging with cryptocurrencies will inevitably be regulated, with hopefully a light touch and somewhat mirror the current utility of banks with their physical branches, ATMs, and online infrastructure. We're currently in uncharted territories, and I believe that we are well on our way to finding some clarity in this new and exciting industry. This is a peaceful revolution where any individual has the opportunity to vote with their money and bypass the existing centralized model of banking that we know today. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Kyle Kemper.
Hello, everyone. For the past 5 years, I've had an enlightenment around cryptocurrency that blockchain and Bitcoin and Dogecoin have provided. A chance for choice. We were born with the Canadian dollar, we were born with the US dollar, we were born with the euro, we were born with centralized data systems. Now we have a choice in front of us. We have a new paradigm for technology that's providing us with access to a future that will enable seamless experience. In giving, I give away a lot of Bitcoin. I show people how it works. I don't have much, but I give what I have to help people understand exactly how it works, to help people set up wallets, to guide them through the process of sending, receiving. Because a lot of people have heard about this technology. They've heard what the news tells them. They've heard the ups, the downs, the scams, the hacks. They've heard some good things too. They have friends telling them how exciting it is and how they've done really well on it. But then they also see people like us who are different, who see a world of unbelievable creation and opportunities for us to develop new solutions to age-old problems. What I really want to talk about right now is the state of the decentralized union, if you will, and the fact that probably here right now, not everybody has a wallet on their phone with crypto in it. In order to use digital currency and digital assets, you need a digital wallet. And right now we have a fragmented global marketplace for wallets. We have many different projects, and if you actually want to use blockchain solutions, you need a different wallet for practically every single one. It's time for us to come together in the spirit of decentralization and open source to develop a framework and let's call it an open digital wallet standard where we have extensibility. So if you think about a wallet, in my wallet, there's a difference between a wallet and a money clip. In my wallet, I have my identities, my cards, my contacts, my receipts, other things that grant me access to things. I have passwords that also grant me access to things. Now with my digital wallet, right now, most of them are just money clips. They allow me to send, store, and receive crypto. But to move, we need to move into the wallet thing. We now have digital identities. We have self-sovereign digital identities where you are in control of all of your data. We need this to also factor in the cryptocurrencies. And as we see thousands of new tokens emerging on the markets, we need one place for this all to go. When choosing a person or talking to a new person and bringing them into the space, the challenge is always, which wallet? What does your phone support it? And if we can come together, all the foundations around the world, with the governments, with the nonprofits, with the UN, with the decentralized union, with our tribes, with our shibes, we can do this. We can build this. So today, I propose a treatise to build this wallet in an open fashion where we bring the best in class in from all around the world to help on this because people want this and we can do this. Most of the people who have developed our wallets to this point, they've been brilliant. They know what they're doing in terms of developing secure wallets. In terms of making something that the whole world is ready to use, I don't think so. But you know who are really good at making things that are people ready to use? It's gamers. The gaming community is someone that we need to reach out to. In terms of security, we need authentication providers. Open access to these authentication providers. And then with an app store for wallets, we're already seeing open APIs around agriculture, around identity, around supply chain management, around certifications. You need a place to have this. Your wallet is the place where you're going to hold all these keys. It will be your portal. As we move into virtual reality, there will just be this portal as well that you need to garner access to. If you die, what happens? These are all things that can be sorted out from within this, let's say, decentralized open source wallet portal operating system for the future. Or maybe we should just call it the Doge wallet. But that's basically all that I have to say, and I hope that everyone can come together. I just share this, and I know that around the world there are many other people that are on this path as well. And together, if we can agree to these high-level principles about what we're doing, we can rise above the community infightings and understand that we truly are in this together. And to the spirit of decentralization, this is an excellent example of decentralization. So many people have come together to make this happen, but I would like to show extreme gratitude to Chelsea and Gary for making this all possible. And as a parting note, please, 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 hodl your savings, spendle your checkings, and givel with love. Show people, give it away. Satoshis are cheap, bits are cheap. Show people. The gift of crypto is like a gift that nobody has ever received before, if they've never received it before, and it will change their life. I remember my first email address. It changed my life. And now with crypto, it has completely changed my life, and we're changing all of our lives together. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from James.
Hello, everyone. I'm James Anderson, and I handle business development for an organization called Social Evolution. And today I'm here to talk about property rights and tokenization in the blockchain era. The right to property, or the right to own property, is classified as a human right for natural persons regarding their possessions. And a right to property has been recognized by Article 17 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Part 1, it says, everyone has the right to own property alone, as well as in association with others, and no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his or her property. Property rights are natural rights that derive from fundamental principles of self-sovereignty, which includes the right to bodily autonomy, and the ownership of one's actions, which can take the form of labor. This means that you can determine how you allocate your time, so you can choose to create something from existing goods that you own, or you can choose to contract with others to use their resources to create goods on their behalf in exchange for compensation for your time. So this is, your standard sort of employment contracts. Now, no talk of property can happen without mentioning money. So what is money? Well, put simply, money is human energy in liquid form. As Arthur Brock of Holochain says, currencies are currents that you see. And with cryptocurrencies, we're going to start seeing new forms of value that'll transform this world into one of massive abundance. Today, there are over $250 trillion worth of physical assets owned around the globe, and most of these assets are still signified by paper and are frustratingly illiquid. That means you can't very easily trade them. However, with the advent of blockchains, ownership will continue to move from the analog world into the digital world, and we'll witness the release of trillions of dollars of illiquid assets into liquid tradable marketplaces. Blockchains are used for title and land titles and registries. This helps by making them publicly available, more transparent, and it helps to eliminate multiple titles of land for the same piece of property. So this will reduce fraud and eliminate the need for title insurance and make land more transparent into who owns it. And this, as Hernando de Soto points out, will absolutely help those in developing countries to be able to get loans and have access to new pools of capital for which they can build businesses, grow resources, and expand what the world has to offer. We can also tokenize real estate so property can be managed and owned collectively. In fact, we already do this. It's being done through limited partnerships, for instance, and real estate investment trusts. What the blockchain allows and cryptocurrencies provide is increased liquidity and more democratization of these cash flowing assets so that everyone can own a piece of land that produces value over time. So why should we tokenize real world assets? Well, strictly speaking, because the benefits are incredible. Our world is full of assets such as stocks, real estate, gold, carbon credits, oil, etc. And many of these assets are difficult to transfer or subdivide. So buyers and sellers instead trade paper that represents some or all of the asset. But paper and legal agreements are far too complex in many cases, cumbersome, and difficult to transfer. Also, they can be hard to track and the data can be lost, which leads to fraud and other issues. So one solution is to switch to a digital system where physical assets are digitized into tokens or credits stored on blockchains or post-blockchain solutions, and traded on exchanges or directly between peers. Now, there are different types of assets, and lawyers make a distinction between assets that are fungible and those that are not. So a fungible asset is one where each item is identical to each other. So think of things like wheat or gold. An ounce of gold in my pocket is equal to an ounce of gold in yours. Fungible assets are often easier to convert into tokens because they can be broken down into smaller units via decimal places, and a number of projects are already looking and have tokenized assets like gold, solar cells, farmland, and other physical assets. In turn, assets like boats and cars could also be tokenized, collectively owned, and actively utilized to provide value in this modern gig economy. But what I'm really excited about is that we're about to experience the absolute renaissance of city-states. Soon we're going to see ICOs of startup cities across the globe, both on land and on the water, and eventually in space. These offer exit options for people to leave oppressive nation states that harm their citizens. Blockchains allow for more efficient and transparent currencies, companies, and governance services to exist. Organizations like Holo are creating mutual credit currencies that are value stable, asset backed, and utilize crypto accounting frameworks for peer-to-peer applications. These new systems are not designed to strictly hide digital cash or anonymous cash, but they are made to build social coherence by holding people accountable to the shared agreements that they've made. Ultimately, a currency system is just a game that we all play together. And new games can now be created with different rules and sets that are more accurately reflective of the natural world and how people truly interact with each other to trade goods and services. We're now witnessing the birth of natural money in its most pure, energetic form. Welcome to the world of digital coins, tokens, and credits. Thank you.
Next, we'll be hearing from Alex Stirk.
Hello. Yes, I am Alex Stirk, resident space cowboy, roamer of the fourth dimensional planes, and co-founder of Ubic and an avid user of the Dogecoin chain. Today, I'm talking about smart contracts, law, and governance because things have changed since the time of the last DogeCon. Back when there was a case going on with the Silk Road, and Ross Ulbricht and his defense team were mounting a very, very good case, including some blockchain data and analytics that may have proved his innocence. But the judge dismissed this as irrelevant and non-traditional records. From this point on, we've seen many states reverse this clarification by the judge. Arizona, California, Florida, Tennessee, Vermont, Nevada. These states are all passing new bills that are allowing blockchain data to be admissible in court. Not only passing, but unanimously passing. This change in dynamic will surely help us see justice for Ross in the very near future. So part of these bills have included that records secured with a blockchain are authentic electronic records. Key pair signatures can be used in lieu of regular signatures, and smart contracts can be in place of regular ones. Now, this brings many levels of efficiency, throughput, and dispute resolution. We've seen marriages on the blockchain. We've seen divorces on the blockchain. And there'll be many more to come. Personally, I was unable to find many cases where there was disputes over blockchain data versus traditional data. And I think this is part of the reason why these are passing unanimously. We realize the strength, the durability, and the transparency of the data that we do include in the blockchain. A Canadian bar rep said he sees blockchain putting the legal profession out of business eventually. This being through reduced amounts of disagreements, because you can form much more agreeable terms in these environments. And he puts forward that this might not be a positive thing, but it's definitely not a negative thing. This is just innovation. This is a new technology revamping an entire industry and improving it. Next, we have seen the National Research Council of Canada has now started trials of using the Ethereum blockchain to add more transparency to its grants and funding systems. A representative from the organization said it does give unprecedented levels of transparency, trust, and efficiency. But again, it is still early days. And I think we can see many applications for governments to use blockchain, but there are many points where blockchain could use governments. Maybe not traditional governments, but some form of organizational chaos, I guess, as we've seen with Bitcoin, where things can be agreed upon. It might take a little longer, but there is consensus. There are also protocol level governances like Decred and Dash that are functioning to this day with very little dispute. Socially enforceable governments like EOS is proposing, and many layer 2 solutions like Aragon and District 0x on the Ethereum chain and even Escher on the Ubiq chain. These solutions are definitely going to trickle back to our traditional systems of corporate governance and whatever new states we decide to form. I thank you all for your time, and I really look forward to seeing how long we can go before blockchain data goes against the traditional system in terms of which data has more bearing. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Samir.
Hello. All right. So I'm wearing this bear today to signal the whole bear market we're all caught in right now. In relation to that, I'll be speaking on trade and commerce in the world of digital currencies today. I'd like to start off with a little piece of holy literature from Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper about Bitcoin. Commerce on the internet has come to rely almost exclusively on financial institutions serving as trusted third parties to process electronic payments. Sounds normal when you think about it, but where are the mistakes here? What is wrong in the way things are being transacted with today? This statement goes on to mention inherent weaknesses of trust in centralized institutions and finance providers, as well as increasing costs of mediation, disputes with chargebacks, reversals of payments. Why has commerce come to this from where it started thousands of years ago? Commerce began as a decentralized movement. It was a peer-to-peer environment, people traveling across seas with ships and across deserts with camels to meet in these giant markets where anyone was allowed to come and set up shop and sell anything to anybody else. Everything was working out perfectly then. What changed? The population grew, the need for mass adoption and mass creation of all of these things that this consumerist society needs to function. I think decentralization at its core is decision-making distributed away from central authority to the participants involved. This relates very closely to commerce. I was in Egypt about 6 months ago at the Khan el-Khalili market. It's been around for over 1,000 years, and still today, the streets, as far as the eye can see, are littered with people selling their products to other people in a decentralized environment. Super cool stuff. That's evolved in our world, in the first world here, into flea markets, yard sales, stuff like that. This offers people the ability to make additional income for themselves away from these giant conglomerates of commercial stores that are created now. In 1991, the World Wide Web was started. 4 years later, people didn't know what they were doing with the internet, but you start to see the emergence of companies like eBay, systems like Craigslist, and people were already finding that a huge use case for the internet was transacting decentralized peer-to-peer in a commerce environment. The problem is with all these platforms is they're still victim to centralized governance. Craigslist, you have all the scams, eBay, it's monitored by one company. The evolution of fintech and payments is happening as we speak with blockchain technology. You have tokens from new ICOs and projects that are created for industry-specific use cases and creating microeconomies and communities all across the globe that are agreeing upon value in each of these tokens. The next step for that is decentralized marketplaces. So we all know about Ross Ulbricht, obviously, in Silk Road in 2011. That was the beginning of all of this. Where do we draw the line with governments stepping in and deciding how we are allowed to transact with our funds, with our products, with our services? Ross was quoted as saying he wanted to use economic theory as a means to abolish the use of coercion and aggression across mankind. That's a pretty big statement. But what's happening now is we're seeing the emergence of platforms like BitPay. platforms like Syscoin, platforms like Open Bazaar that allow you to list all of these goods and services to anybody in the world and accept whichever currencies you choose to give value to. Why is this important? Well, traditional e-commerce, 5 to 20% of fees are taken by a centralized system. These sorts of decentralized marketplaces allow people to get the full value for the product that they're trying to sell. I think a big roadblock in this is education. And as pioneers in this industry, all of us have a responsibility to pass along that knowledge and start to teach people, how can we use this? It's not fake internet money anymore. I come from a company called Coin Payments. We processed almost $1 billion in cryptocurrency transactions last year alone. This is off platforms like Shopify, Magento, a lot of the major e-commerce platforms in the world. People are using these coins, and not just one type of coin. We support 500 coins, and the top 100 had a pretty decent amount of volume. So I think we're finally starting to see that real world utility case in all of these microeconomies and the ability to create your own business from your own bedroom or wherever you reside. I think moving on to the future, we'll start to see identity and ownership of these products on the blockchain built into these environments where you have musicians able to sell their music directly to their fans and cut out the middlemen that have been controlling them for all this time. It's no more the rich getting richer. It's setting your own identity, owning your own product, and participating on your own terms. Ultimately, we're trying to create a truly free market worldwide for everybody, where we can create a meme with the face of a dog on a coin and have a community like this that agrees that that has value. We like the way it transacts. It's better than fiat for us. So now you have merchants transacting in it. Referring to that, Coin Payment supports 550 currencies today. Dogecoin is number 4 in transactional volume on that list. We're talking about fast, cheap transactions, increased efficiency over the system that exists today, fully agnostic coin support. I think the next step in evolution, we're launching decentralized marketplaces. Like I said before, centralized governance is going to be really important. Decentralized governance is going to be really important. So maybe having third-party arbiters that control escrow and provide trust on top of the trust, building a bridge to the gap for people who don't understand how this works, and maybe starting it off centralized and burning tokens over time and creating an environment where people can slowly learn and then take that accountability onto themselves so they no longer have to rely on a centralized bank or institution to control the way they transact on a global scale. This is like a one-stop solution created to simplify everything happening today. And each of us are talking about a different part of this technology. None of it can happen without each other. We all do this together. There's a legal aspect to it. There's an agriculture aspect. There's distribution. There's manufacturing. Think about 3D printing. That allows you to take a 2D picture.
Samir, you have gone over your time.
1 minute. I'm sorry. There's so many things to talk about with commerce.
You have 15 seconds to say your final remark.
Just need 10 seconds. I'm just going to end this with another Buckminster Fuller quote, because that guy is an absolute gem. There's only one revolution tolerable to all men, all societies, all political systems. Revolution by design and invention. We are going to be architects of the future, not its victims.
Next, we will hear from Alex Sockeld. Hello, I'm Alex Sockeld. I'm from the Decontrol community, from Dogecoin planning team, and from blockchaingaming.com. I was speaking today on the state of decentralized entertainment and gaming. Since the beginning of recorded history, mankind has always wanted to be entertained. We've always wanted to sing, to dance, to play, to compete. Some of the oldest examples of this are things like chess and Go, which live on to this day as games that people still play and compete against each other. The plays of the is it coming through? Hello? The plays and theatrical performances of the past still live on to this day, hundreds to thousands of years later. Over time, this was a very centralized system that you must go to see it, and you had no option to see it again until you went back. These would only happen in set places at set times. Moving on to the invention of radio and television. These things were delivered to us directly, but this did not come without its disadvantages, for we did not have a choice of what we were shown and what we were given and how we were entertained. As we move through the years to the current time, with the invention of the internet, we were given new choices on how we communicate with each other, how we interact with each other, and we were given the option to entertain each other directly. This has led to systems like YouTube, where anyone who wants can broadcast whatever they want to the world, and if they are entertained, you can actually make a living like this. This did also not come with the disadvantages of things like censorship. Over the years, with the advent of radio and television, copyright law has become very complex and is still very important, but must be changed. The current copyright law does not allow people to be creative in ways with something they didn't, quote, invent. But all that changes with decentralized technology because we can do whatever we want now. We don't need to ask permission. Games have changed from something we play with each other in person, perhaps on a board. They became things we play on video game consoles together, and they moved on to things we play on the internet together with large groups of people. They've become things now such as Pokemon Go, where we can walk around and play a video game, yet still be exploring a park in a dark and stormy night. That is something I've experienced, and it was beautiful. With the advent of virtual reality, we will build spaces within spaces. We can all go together, and we can all still be alone. And it's very important that we not stay alone. Over time, games will continue to advance, and one day they will offer you the Matrix plug. It will not be decentralized. You will be locked in. Do not take them up on their offer. Currently, we are having decentralized file storage with things like DTube for decentralized video. Although it's still getting there, it will be there, or a system like it will be. And we can deliver anything we want, anything we create to the rest of the world without asking permission. And no one can tell you no. And I yield the rest of my time. Next, we'll be hearing from Chelsea Palmer.
Hello, I'm Chelsea Palmer. I am also with Decontrol Community Commons, the Dogecoin team, and kind of a rogue agent in decentralist event stuff. So, education. We have more potential access to information and curriculum and resources than ever, but the paywalls are rising fast. When online courses, etc., were first introduced, when they were being kind of, QA pen tested with internet users, most things were free. And now I go back to resources that I used to use for, online courseware, and suddenly, you have to pay to access this. So as Brianna pointed out, in terms of communication and connectivity, we have some major wins with disruptive technology and new protocols for tech for global social good. But in some contexts, the gaps in access have widened. When I did a machine learning course with MIT's online courseware, the majority of my colleagues in this program were from the global South. People who I was super impressed. They were doing this in a second, third, or beyond language for them, and they were so engaged. It made me realize how much I take my access to educational resources for granted. Because when we had assignments of discuss with your peers, they were on there in the message boards, like us with the altcoins in the message board for Dogecoin. People want access to educational resources, and people who want to learn will do anything to access that. I really, when I was kind of composing this a bit in my head, I'm kind of going off the cuff, but I always return when I'm thinking of education to Aaron Swartz and to the idea that information needs to be free. Information wants to be free. It belongs to the people. And this is what Alex was touching on. I think with the decentralization and decentralist movement. We hit up against copyright and IP at every angle now. We are strong proponents of Creative Commons modular opt-in copyright systems, and I think that Creative Commons allows people to put things out in the world and ensure that others can access them, and no centralized authority can lock down content and decide to charge for it. So I think obviously that we see as well a lot of people do passionately put out free content, and we need, I think that the education field is one of the fields that desperately needs new structures for monetization and compensating creators, compensating people who put this stuff out there for others. I am of the belief that the private sector should willingly be subsidizing this stuff, because they're who benefit from people learning to become blockchain developers, etc. If we need people educated, the companies that need those people working for them should be happy. And we've seen from things like Dogecoin, like companies are awesomely happy to fund something that doesn't have an immediate ROI, but makes the sector thrive. I think the other priority to me is making space for and even embracing neurodiversity and different learning and communication styles. Some humans are autistic, some humans are emotional or have mood disorders. And we need to reform the archaic norms in which society's desire for everyone to behave similarly in a place like a classroom overrides people's individual and often unique needs for their own well-being. To take a moment. We teach children very early, no, you have to sit there. We give you a timeout. You can't request a timeout. You can't request space. And I think that that's one thing that leads a lot of people at a young age to be uncomfortable in learning systems. Finally, I think, just as an aside, every Gen Z child should learn to code. Just like Mavis Beacon taught me typing, I think that CryptoKitties and Code RPG and stuff should teach the next wave of decentralists. And I would like to see a future for education that is opt-in, constantly interdisciplinary, mixes mediums and contexts, both digital and face-to-face, which is collaborative, peer-to-peer, as fun as a decentralized dance party, and lifelong. And the Doge Quest game today was us taking a crack at that, at getting people together and having them have some fun. And Jessica Angel is here and is installing the Doge Ethereum Bridge art project in Vancouver next year, where we will have accessible K through 12 friendly blockchain education similarly.
Next, we will hear from Colin.
Thank you. I am Colin Pape, the founder of Presearch, and it's an honor to be here. And thank you all for providing this experience. I'm here to speak about the state of access to information. Fellow council members, I deliver this report on the state of access to information and intellectual property on the 23rd of June. In 2018, the state of information access is still extremely centralized. The internet is dominated by one company, Alphabet, which controls the following online properties: Google, the #1 search engine with more than 96% market penetration in the US; YouTube, the #1 video publishing platform with more than 70% market penetration; Google Maps, the #1 mapping and local information resource; Google Docs, the #1 file publishing platform. Google's Chrome is also the #1 browser with more than 60% market share, plus many other products. Social media is dominated by another company, Facebook, which controls the #1 social media platform with more than 2 billion active users. Instagram, the #1 photo sharing platform with more than 800 million active users. And WhatsApp, the #1 chat app with more than 1.5 billion active users. Apple maintains a tight stranglehold on the ecosystem that serves its 220 million users, while Google, through its Android platform, serves most of the other 2.5 billion mobile users. It's never been more centralized. As more and more people wake up to the fact that these online giants are using and sometimes abusing or failing to protect user data, a growing backlash has resulted in Senate hearings for Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook, significant fines imposed against Google in the EU, and recently the new GDPR legislation intended to protect user data. Coupled with the awareness that Facebook, Google, and Twitter are censoring results, for instance, the recent bans on cryptocurrency content, the tech monoliths have set the stage for the decentralized revolution that is underway. We are making tremendous progress. The infrastructure we need to build platforms to compete with the incumbent monopolies is taking shape. In addition to Ethereum's powerful blockchain, which has enabled many projects to launch quickly, new blockchains such as Nebulous, which is designed for content ranking, are making it easier than ever to launch decentralized alternatives. IPFS, peer-to-peer nodes, BitTorrent, and other upcoming alternatives are making it possible to host content in a decentralized manner. This has enabled a number of projects to grow quickly. Some standouts include DTube and BitTube, decentralized alternatives to YouTube, Steemit, a decentralized alternative to Medium, Poet for content monetization and attribution, Presearch for decentralized search, BAT and the BAT token for rewarding publishers and monetizing private personal data, Minds.com, and MeWe, decentralized social networks. These platforms are all rewarding creators, protecting personal privacy, and adding to the open source ecosystem. Although much of the world, including most of us decentralists, rely on centralized platforms, it is getting easier to switch to decentralized alternatives. And 2018 will be the year that we will be able to vote with our browsers and send the big online giants a message. We want to own our content. We want to control our personal data. We want to be rewarded for our efforts. And we want more choice, less censorship, and more transparency. The time has come. Thank you.
Next, we'll be hearing from Kyle McDonald.
Mike, is it working? Okay, my name is Kyle. I'm Mitch's friend, and I'm here tonight to talk about privacy and online identity as it relates to the blockchain and immutability. Now, everyone's like all about tech and like ZK, Z-Snarks and like Ricardo, Fluffy Pony and all that. I don't know what those things are really, but all it really means is you. It's not about the tech, it's about you. But you aren't a collection of DNA and atoms and things like that. You are an ongoing, alive experience. And that has nothing to do with blockchain technology. Or does it? And that's where it gets exciting, because we were born into a collective hallucination from combined DNA from a long line of parents and grandparents where we didn't make any of the stuff up. We just followed the rules. But we have now a chance to flip the script. I know this sounds ridiculous and belligerent and stuff like that, but it's real. You can now create your own money. You can now create all the things on a worldwide scale, on a level that has never been doable from the comfort of your own in-bedroom, in-pocket tracking device. It's totally, totally doable. The question is, will anyone do it? And if they do it, will it be in vain because it's actually achieving the wrong goal? I don't believe in privacy. I think it's fake. I think there's always been people listening to doors, and there's always been people reading mail and faking what's that stamp thing called on a letter? It's like you stamp it. Yeah, there's always been people faking this stuff. So there is always going to be a deep state actor, whether it's Mark Zuckerberg, whether it's the Silk Road guys, whether it's real or not, you have to ask the question, is it real? Because if it isn't, you're being duped. And I think as far as it applies to privacy, I mean, the drugs are great, but they know where you live. All the new privacy coins will be hacked. Yes, you have privacy in that transaction, but your address is now with the NSA. So anything you put into your phone is there forever. And it's controlled by someone with way, way more drones than you. So I wouldn't be worried about it. I'm an optimist. I'm a big believer in all this stuff. However, if you fool yourself into thinking you're being private, you're probably being duped. So the great news is, if you're a good person, if you're upstanding, if you are exporting knowledge and ideas to countries so they can drag themselves out of the jackboot of their reality, we can change it. And we can do it one blockchain at a time. And these blockchains are going to fall apart. They're going to blow up. There's going to be BitConnects. But that BitConnect will bring more knowledge to decentralization than PIVX or one of these privacy coins. And that's what's so amazing is the way that this is being promoted through Doge, through Steemit. Like my mom is on Steemit. She doesn't know anything about crypto. She doesn't care. She knows that if she posts something on there, it will never be deleted, but she doesn't care. She's like, that's great. I hope people in 12 generations will learn about that. And that's the scary part. Is the goal privacy or is privacy the enemy? A wise man named Gary LaChance once said, privacy is the enemy. That doesn't mean all your information is public. That doesn't mean all your conversations are public. That means that if you think you're being private, get ready for it to be hacked and act upon that and own your future. Because in the future, people are going to find stuff from your past and they will weaponize it. They will weaponize it against you. They will try to trick you. They will use it. But if you own it and if you correct it, it's the most empowered individual action you can ever make. And that gives rise to deep fakes. Did what happened actually happen, or is it deep faked in real time? Did someone put someone else's mouth on someone's face? Did it actually happen? I'm not trying to gaslight you guys, but people are doing it right now, which in the future, you could say, oh, that was a deep fake. So there's all kinds of new playgrounds. Have fun with this stuff. Just imagine the new drugs that are going to be created. Imagine the ways you can get them in ways that don't involve yourself or your own tracking device. And you and your children and their individual plus collective experience will be greater than ever, because this isn't about the state of the blockchain as regards to privacy. This is about the state of you and keeping you having the best experience possible. So that's about it.
Next, we will hear from Lewis.
Hey everyone, my name's Lewis Parker.
We're no strangers to love. You know the rules, and so do I.
All right. So, with respect to time, I want to discuss what is a meme. So, as a gene is a unit of life, we can think of a meme as a unit of meaningful information. And the same metamorphic processes that apply to genes also apply to memes, like mutation and evolution. Because of the advent of the social information technology boom, this evolutionary process, which precipitates new permutations of memes, has accelerated exponentially. This exponential memetic flow is having and will continue to have significant impacts on the fabric of our culture and society. In common vernacular, memes are often nothing more than funny internet images. However, these funny internet images have created multiple billion-dollar markets of meme coins, swayed elections, earned the ire of propaganda organizations worldwide, and most recently might be banned in the EU under their new copyright laws. So there's certainly a gravitas to the power of memes as such. And if we can understand what that is, we open ourselves up to a domain of power without borders. Recently, WikiLeaks released the CIA's Department of Memetic Warfare Field Manual, which details how one can change the neurological structures of a population's brain patterns using targeted memes. The meme war is the yin to the information war's yang. Thank you. We all have the innate capacity of creation and hence the innate capacity to meme. Blockchain tech have given certain memes economic legs, and we can expect far more of this in the future. With open, decentralized systems, our collective capacity to meme freely is paving the way to universal information abundance, as opposed to the old paradigms of walled gardens and information scarcity. Memes are doing to the media industry what blockchain is doing to the currency industry. Your voice, your capacity for creation is your ultimate power to affect change. As the late and great Terence McKenna said, launch your memes boldly and see if they will replicate. It is written that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh. The memes we create today will manifest as the reality of our tomorrows. Memes are beacons which unite us in our essential humanity as creative beings of love and of light. So I implore you, during this new era of technologically empowered meme magic, don't let your memes stay dreams. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Anders.
Hi, I'm Anders, and I'll be speaking on the state of decentralized shamanism and drugs. So first, I'd like to take a moment as a shaman to thank Doge consciousness, to thank the Doge consciousness in each one of us looking out through our eyes. We wouldn't be here without the Doge. I'd also like to think about for a moment the first principle of the Dharmakaya, the body of the Buddha, and that principle is one Doge equals one Doge. So I'm Anders Ahmed. I'm a psychologist and I've studied education. I'm headmaster of the Internet School of Magic, founder of the Coalition of Invisible Colleges. I admin Sorcery of the Spectacle, and I work right now for Holo on Holochain. The problem is that psychiatry is lame, and the war on drugs is lame. Psychiatry, the DSM was originally presented as loose guidelines, but then it became like rock solid law and like the way to invalidate people. And the drug industry, big pharma, completely colonized psychiatry, including the degree programs. Psychiatry routinely imprisons people without trial and violates their human rights. If you'd like to learn more about this, watch the anime Psychopaths. The planetary shaman class, shamanism is the most ancient form of human healing. Indigenous wisdom traditions, involvement with plants, and oral traditions about what heals people were passed down and were likely involved in the early evolution of the human species. However, shamans have been persecuted for 3,000 to 20,000 years, depending upon who you ask. I wasn't able to fact check this, but I heard that there was still an office of the Inquisition open in Peru. So we need to reconstitute the global shaman class. We need a massive movement of high quality peer-to-peer magical and philosophical education, comparative religion, writing, and history. Science. Anyone who is familiar with shamanism or psychedelics and drugs like that knows that they're very effective in healing a number of different psychological and sometimes psychosomatic or physical conditions, as well as, for example, THC working with pain. But now scientists are finally starting to be funded to perform studies and collect evidence for the effectiveness of these therapies. So MDMA was actually first introduced into the world for marriage counseling, and it worked great. And now they're finding that it works well for treating PTSD. THC is an anti-seizure. It's helpful for sleep, anxiety, pain, chronic pain, cancer pain, appetite. Mushrooms have been shown to help terminal patients face their fear of death and process it, and then they're fine. And also it can help with depression. LSD-assisted psychotherapy has also been shown to be effective. There's Stanislav Grof's research in the 70s and 80s, I believe. And there's Iboga, which is effective in treating addiction. Legality. Portugal decriminalized all drugs in 2001, and it's been going fine. They implemented it for harm reduction. It did not increase the usage rates of drugs, but it did dramatically reduce the rates of HIV and deaths due to drug use. So decriminalization is not a problem, and it reduces harm. And there's evidence of that now, plenty of it. The quest for legalization. So there's a lot of really interesting contemporary developments, such as this event in decentralized organizing. The gamification of legalization campaigns and movements is, I think, something we're going to see very soon. Kind of like Obama's campaign was maybe an early preview of that, the gamification of political campaigns. We could gamify marijuana legalization, and then everyone plans to move on to psychedelics after that. So after that, what would be next? That's an exciting question. Also, alternative mental health in general. Under development, our networks are starting to come together to do preclinical critical community interventions. I'll just let that phrase be there. And also safe house networks and travel networks such as the Corridor, which would be a comprehensive, federated, clandestine, decentralized travel network with secret passages, couch surfing, all in one convenient interface. Holochain powered by a distributed hash table. Meta-religion. So religion and paganism, the New Age movement, is most likely the largest religion on the planet now. As I said, I'm the headmaster of the Internet School of Magic, and I'm part of a network of multiple schools of magic, such as Academy 23, where we are working at building a network of educational movements with high quality philosophical and comparative religious education. There's also, as Alex was talking about, immersive gaming movements. Finally, there's a shamanic hotline you can call that rings shamans around the world. If you have a spiritual problem, you can call 1702-LUCY-420. It's 1702-LUCY-420. And I'm going to draw a quick tarot card for our event today. And I'd like to also remind you that you're all Satoshis. Yeah, so here's our card. The Three of Swords, Lord of Sorrow. No. So this actually implies perfection of thought. The perfection of thought that comes from deep contemplation and reflection.
Next, we will hear from Jacques.
Everybody, please repeat after me. When I say you say When I say you say When I say we are, you say the future. We are. Future. We are. My name is Jacques, and I am a party scientist. I have the objective of optimizing parties for health and showing the world the hidden value of partying for public health. The current state of partying is very, very grave and dire. And I tend to lose my voice a lot because I throw a lot of parties. By the ordinary citizen, by the ordinary citizen, partying is deadly. Partying is not regarded as it should be. In the midst of a fentanyl crisis whereby addiction overdoses have reverted to the statistics seen in 2008, I believe that our party systems have failed to cultivate belonging, connection, and euphoria. I believe the current state of partying is a result of centralized corporate marketing campaigns by centralized corporations like alcohol companies to maintain the status quo, which is the fueling of partying through drugs and alcohol. Partying is centralized in bars and nightclubs, which are not designed for fun. There is an exclusivity within these venues that fuels consumption and status seeking. My thesis today is that with decentralized technologies and ideologies, we can create a party culture optimized for fun, social inclusion, oh my God, and well-being. All right, I would like to point out a few of these technologies, one of which is the FM radio, portable FM radios, which enable people to be the party, to possess the sound, which fuels synchronization of human partying and dance. Another technology is an app called AmpMe, which allows you to send DJ from your phone to the internet, whereby multiple participants can then play your DJ mix through their own devices. I'd like to talk about the ideology of decentralization. I believe that decentralized parties will enable us to move away from observation, transform observation to participation and active engagement, inhibition to self-expression, fun consumption to fun making. Consumption to collective creation. There are two great examples that have shown the power of decentralized ideology and decentralized sound systems in transforming party culture and optimizing it for health, positive emotions, and social inclusion. One of which I've been involved with for the last few years, which has inspired my own organization called Party for Health. This is the Decentralized Dance Party. The Decentralized Dance Party is fueled by decentralized sound. Members of the Decentralized Dance Party are participants, are fun makers. By carrying around the sound, there is a sense of community which is cultivated, which creates psychological safety for self-expression and a yes attitude. The second example that I'd like to mention is Burning Man. I actually haven't been to Burning Man, but Gary has convinced me that I have to go. Burning Man is the epitome of a decentralized party designed for fun, social inclusion, and creation, whereby all centralized entertainment is removed, and this stimulates collective, creative self-expression. It is the open source sharing of ideas, positivity, and music. I believe that time is ripe to innovate how humans celebrate. And I believe that it is time to show the world that we should party on a daily basis for our health, for the health of our communities, and for our continual journey to prosperity and decentralization. Thank you so much.
Next, we'll be hearing from Juan.
Hello, everybody. I'm Juan Galt. I was asked to speak about security and defense. First of all, thank you for your attention. Thank you for being here. This is an incredible event, an incredible time in history. Decentralization of power can be seen as the empowerment of the individual. In fact, that's, I think, essentially what it is. And with great power comes great responsibility. There's a great deal of technologies and tools we have today to have a much wider impact on the world, much more conscious impact on the world. Mass media communications. This lets us shape culture before it becomes politics. It lets us shape discourse before it becomes conflict. It's a very, very effective in both doing good and bad, as pretty much any other technology out there. We have sovereign crypto wealth. We have the capacity to have sovereign wealth in a way that has never been imaginable before. We can send money across the globe in seconds, in minutes, and reach levels of certainty about our transactions that we're just, it's incredible. Let's just put it at that. We know what I'm talking about. I want to, on this topic, thank Kyle Kemper for bringing attention to the need to focus on wallet implementations and key management. There's a variety of tools that have been to some degree neglected in the crypto space that have a lot of potential and can help solve a lot of user experience problems, including multi-signature, time lock, verification technologies, and there's a great deal of combinations that we can use with this. Anybody that's working on cryptocurrency projects that is trying to bring about this sort of science fiction-like futures, which have a great deal of potential, thank you for doing that. You will need to strengthen the key management side of it as well. So let's work together on that and make sure that the people that use the crypto can actually hold it and keep it. We have great technologies today, hardware wallets, multi-signature services are coming out for consumers. That's it's fantastic, but we got to keep an eye on the moon. Every couple of years, we do another 20x, 50x. You got to plan for the future. There's a lot of, in terms of security, there's a lot of layers we can look at, and one of them is certainly health and nutrition. Be careful what you eat. If you eat poison, you will be poisoned. If you eat good stuff, you'll be healthier and strong. Focus on that. Pay attention to that. There's social emergency apps, I think that's the way to call them, where with a couple of clicks, you can send important signals to your trusted peers, and they can know what situation you're in. Let's explore those. Let's give them appreciation and see how we can combine them with the technologies that we're playing with. Psychological and defense, psychological security. What does that mean? The world is obviously, as has been talked about, memes are a warfare now. Memes are a means of mass communication. It's important for us to understand what triggers us, what motivates us. This is a message that's been around for over 2,000 years. Know thyself, and you will know the world. Know the world, and you may find knowledge of yourself. So study yourself. There's a lot of empirical ways to get knowledge about who you are and what ticks you off, and make your psyche and your character stronger. Scientific, like big 5 personality tests, all kinds of things like that. DNA tests, that stuff can really protect you and help you be more powerful, personal power. On this, also be careful with notifications for like cell phones and stuff. There's so many. I can't believe that with Facebook you have like 100 different icons trying to get your attention at one time, pulling them in every single direction. It's something that leads to basically mental health problems and insanity. So protect your focus, and you'll be a lot more effective and successful, I think. On spiritual protection, we're talking about shamanism. Thank you. We're talking about shamanism. We're talking about changing the world in very deep and fundamental ways. So be careful what gods you pray to. Be careful where you aim. Right now, as I speak, there's a Jordan Peterson versus Sam Harris debate that's happening like a few blocks down in Vancouver, which to me is a mind-blowing coincidence. that kind of conversation is the cutting edge of culture and spirituality, science and ancient theology being rejuvenated together, and it's changing consciousness at massive scale. There's good reason for that. It's worthy of attention. There's also a lot of martial arts, ancient tools, and knowledge that we can use to be stronger in the melee, in the physical. You know, become strong, but become wise. You know, that this, again, great power comes with great responsibility. We need to be wise and judicious with its use and with this power that we are distributing back into the individual. So, okay. Last but not least, there's some very interesting potential in the use of smart contracts to build our own organizations, and that brings us a level of security that is incomprehensible, but you know, to where we're at today, but it can bring a lot of potential. So let's explore that, and we are exploring it, and it'll come. All right. Thank you for your attention, and let's negotiate hard towards the synthesis with the great powers that be. That we don't have to be at war, and we live in the same planet. So let's negotiate hard, but let's aim for synthesis. Thank you.
One of our speakers was not able to make it, but they have prepared a video. So there's a pre-recording of everyone's favorite Griff Green, and we're really sorry he couldn't be here.
Hi, I'm Griff Green from Giveth.io, and I'm summarizing the state of decentralized charity via video because Canada hasn't quite figured out the nature of borderless society yet. Well, that's their loss. The charitable space is figuring it out really quickly. The state of the decentralized charitable world is strong. We have amazing projects all over the world doing great work on taking advantage of the internet and peer-to-peer crowdfunding resources. These do not involve blockchain, but there are so many of them. Kiva, Give Directly, DonorsChoose.org, Indiegogo, AlittleHelp.com, NextGen, Young Caring, Chummy, Literati. There are all these amazing platforms that are allowing peer-to-peer giving and peer-to-peer collaboration to really take off in 2018. Alongside all of that, we have hundreds of organizations that are experimenting with integrating blockchain technology. At the forefront, we have the BitGive Foundation, who's really been working in this space longer than anyone. They work closely with BitPay to convert crypto to local fiat currency for any registered 501c3 nonprofit. And they do this for free. You can convert crypto to US dollars for free if you're a nonprofit in the United States of America. And there are so many other orgs putting borderless, peer-to-peer, transparent, blockchain-based donations to good use. Think about Blockchain for Social Impact, Shelpin, BitHope, CharityWater.org, Heifer.org, Charity Stars, Good Cards, Impact Chain Lab, GraceAid, AidCoin, Hypergive, Give Foundation, Canyon, Social Alpha Foundation. I could go on and on and on. There are hundreds of organizations out there. And many of them are actually looking deeper into what charity is about. What is at the heart of the matter? Almost all charitable organizations are trying to solve some sort of tragedy of the commons type problem, working to improve a shared resource that's not being properly maintained by the status quo. The main way we use to solve that problem today is to create some kind of legal entity, usually run by the traditional corporate business model that has a mandate to work towards alleviating a symptom of the core problem. This system has many flaws, but just to name a couple that aren't normally talked about. Using the corporate business model to make the world a better place is not going to work. It's a flawed concept. It's the wrong tool for the job. And on the other side of that, we are creating organizations that are dependent on the issue existing. Imagine if a large breast cancer organization found a cure for cancer. Their CEO would have to lay off thousands of good people. Clearly, incentives are misaligned. And I don't even need to get into the effective altruism stuff. there's so much good information out there. Definitely research effective altruism. But it's time that we start building new structures completely. Right now, there is a lot of progress in integrating blockchain into the normal system of giving. But right now, we're only laying the foundation for the future. Organizations like We Trust, Charity DAO, and of course, Giveth.io are building the future of giving. Giveth, for example, is a community focused on blockchain for good. Our flagship product, the Giveth DApp, is trying to create transparent giving so that you can trace your donation not only directly to where it ended up and who it affected, but also all along the path so that you can actually learn who is in this community as well and be connected to them. If you think about it, the charity in the middle right now is actually a divide between people with money that want to make the world a better place and people with the time and resources and ideas to make that change a reality. And honestly, that is one of the biggest opportunities we have as decentralites to make real fundamental impact. And that is to reimagine the concept of money itself that we all share. I'm talking about the story of money, the abstract concept that we as a society have unknowingly agreed to that allows some to have a lot and others to have nothing at all. Every day, dozens of new currencies are created, and each one is an economic experiment. But only a few are actually challenging the current status quo of economic disparity. I want to highlight Circles as a trailblazer there. They're one of many organizations using blockchain technology to create a universal basic income. So many people out there are using blockchain tech and other important tools for decentralization to make the world a better place. There is no better day to be alive. The state of the decentralized union is strong. The state of the, especially what I mean is the state of the decentralized charitable space is strong. Thank you guys.
Next, we will hear from Shannon.
I'm Shannon Ewing. I work with Presearch, and I am here today to talk to you about environmental protection. We could go many ways with this conversation, but just a quick synopsis. For one example, in the 1960s in the US, there were mass amounts of pollution. Companies had run rampant. There were huge problems with air quality. There were entire rivers being set on fire because they were so heavily polluted. There was coal mining in one state leading to acid rain in others. So clearly there was a need for a centralized, federal government kind of program in order to oversee these things because local state programs weren't going to cover it. So not only did they need the oversight, but mainly it was because society still didn't know enough about environmental protection. We were still trying to figure out how to measure these things, what the long-term impacts were actually going to be, what projects were going to have problems. But B, also because we didn't have the decentralized means of communication. Media chose to cover what they wanted to cover, and we had no idea on how to research these things ourselves, much less get the message out to each other. Today we have thousands of green bloggers that are happy to spread the word, to blow the whistle, to shame bad actors. We have Instagram influencers shouting about trophy hunters. We have near daily Facebook campaigns. We are constantly barraged with different things that are going on with the environment and how we can contribute to that. We are finally engaging because we have the means to engage. As in most areas, we have the Environmental Protection Agency, and as benevolent as they might be, they lag behind. It's heavily bureaucratic. It takes a long time to respond to anything. They can't keep up with the pace of innovation, not only to adapt to the new strategies that we have to offer, but also not to effectively prevent the new leeches upon the global commons. Also, as many of us in the room know, private enterprise is going to be always the most effective in coming up with new methods and technologies. The private sector will be where the innovation happens and where I believe everyone here is happy to focus. We have all sorts of organizations today. Many of you are familiar with all sorts of projects doing great things to pull plastic out of the oceans, to help developing regions begin to recycle and leapfrog us in terms of waste solutions. We have, we're creating cattail containers and coffee cups out of cassava, finding new ways that we don't have to continue leaching on the planet. We're seeing emission-free airplanes and diamonds made out of air pollution, pulling carbon out of the sky. And all of this happened not because of mandates, but because people care. It's not the EPA forcing us to come up with creativity and innovative solutions. It's that people care about those things and are creating them independently. The farm to table movement is changing the way that we eat, the way that we cultivate our food, the way that we interact with the meals on our table. Homesteaders have done a full circle back to very traditional systems and are finding ways that cooperative farming can create local solutions, cut down on waste, and even create microgrid power solutions among each other. We are spontaneously coming up with peer-to-peer solutions to protect our planet. Again, all of this is without the recommendation of government. It is out with their influence. It is simply because we care and we will come up with solutions for things that we care about. The projects that we are seeing from the government are in some ways laughable. We have a proposal from the U.S. Department of Defense right now who is asking that we find a way to create biodegradable ammunition. The amount of bullet casings from their practice rounds are leaching so many minerals and creating so much pollution. Military sites are some of the most polluted places on the planet. And they said that maybe if we start adding seeds to the ammunition cases and we feed animals, it won't quite be so bad that we're firing off so many rounds. As this group knows, we can be a hell of a lot more creative than that. We aren't, the DoD isn't the only organization in question. We've heard a lot about the problems with crypto mining, that we are creating new forms of energy drain. It is alarmingly consumptive. But once we dig into those numbers, we see that it is 1/3 the amount of energy is consumed by Bitcoin mining is consumed by the traditional banking sector. When we start looking at the banking system itself in terms of how many different layers there are, from the printing presses all the way through the teller that you speak to on a daily basis. There's data processors, there's ATMs that need to be created. There are armored vehicles around the world consuming gas. There's employees commuting to work. There are 100-acre data farms and data centers creating all sorts of tugs on the system, but that's not in front of the person when they use their Visa, MasterCard, ATM transaction or go buy a coffee with their card. So yes, we have, as a crypto community, come under some speculation as well, and rightly so. But in many ways, that is just another challenge that we were quickly overcoming and finding ways to continue to leapfrog the problems that we've seen in traditional sectors. We are inherently forward-thinking in decentralist movements. We are constantly wondering what's next and logarithmically growing these projects. Even before one has finalized, we are already thinking 10 steps ahead and saying, how can we make it better? How can we augment? There's also the financial incentive, because we would like to make these projects lighter, easier to run, easier on not only in the environment, but on our pocketbooks. And I'm pretty sure that Iceland is getting sick of all of us moving there. We have projects that are zero carbon. We have a plethora of clean and renewable energy projects coming out, helping for peer-to-peer electric connectivity across the world. And with the emerging options just creating day by day, there's new ways that these projects of decentralization that are creating ways that we can interact with each other and make sure that we are bringing this back down to a micro level, that we don't need mass global energy production. And with these options, Right now, we are uniquely poised. We have more information and more connectivity and more access to the resources that we are creating for and amongst each other, that we can finally start really voting with our assets that matter the most, our attention and our Doge. Thank you.
Next, we'll be hearing from Cameron.
Hello. Okay, so open source culture is a philosophy that everyone should have common access to all the world's information for the betterment of humanity. This includes scientific knowledge, 3D printable designs, hardware design, and software. In particular, with open source and free software, anyone can copy, replicate, and modify existing software to build something on top of it. It can't be stressed enough how important this is. Software that may have taken thousands of hours to create can be utilized by anyone in the world in minutes and without permission. Conversely, decentralized consensus software like Bitcoin and blockchain tech gives us the ability to globally scale P2P trust. The combo of open source and decentralizing tech creates an unstoppable force that will completely change the world. Open and decentralized security models can't be stopped because there's no head to cut off, or at least when one head is cut off, it multiplies into two heads and becomes stronger. This is also known as the Streisand effect, after Barbra Streisand. Because of this, we believe open and decentralized systems will outcompete closed and centralized systems. We believe the liberation of all information is inevitable and will obsolete the concept of trademark, copyright, patent, proprietary software, and will render them redundant sometime in the 21st century. This will finally allow us to decentralize course of centralized institutions, but there's a potential dark side. It will give individuals an enormous amount of power in the future that could be used in nefarious purposes. This is why we believe this inevitable devolution of power should be done in a safe, fun, and responsible way that includes everyone. There are two components for doing this, the code and the culture. First, I'll talk about the code. At Decontrol, our decentralized community commons space in Vancouver, we have written an open source decentralized governance application. It serves as a voluntary self-regulating framework for running common spaces autonomously in a decentralized way. We built it with the intention of ridding any positions of centralized control or corruption within the common space. We want to share it so other DIY hacker spaces and common spaces can use it for governing their own communities. Eventually, we would like to use it to scale the P2P trust we have in our own communities globally with the intention of making centralized governance redundant. The software includes decentralized access control, code for managing vending machines, a bounty system, and code for keeping track of all of the accounting as transparently as possible for the members. I'll give you a few examples. Members of the Commons have fobs that are associated with their account and their credit. Membership is paid in crypto, which feeds into a Commons multi-sig wallet. Because we can program crypto, if a member hasn't paid their membership, the door simply won't open. They can open the app on their phone and pay their membership fee in minutes and have access to the space. It does this autonomously, encourages more members to join the Commons. You can find more about this at decontrol.ca, DCTRL. Now for the other half, the culture. We have to get the culture right. As Gary mentioned, this is an acceptance movement, not a resistance. I'd like to elaborate on that axiom and the kind of cultural values many of us try to promote at Decontrol. It's my view that we cannot allow the 21st century to be framed with the polarizing, exclusionary capitalism, communism axis of the 20th century. It's an antiquated framework full of emotional baggage, negative connotations, and it will tear us apart. The depolarizing decentralization, centralization axis is much more relevant and apt for the 21st century. Capitalism gone awry is the same problem as communism gone awry. These systems become corrupted by course of monopolizing centralized institutions and oligarchical centralized networks. They're the same thing. It's the set of incentives in these systems that become a magnet for narcissistic and antisocial behavior that polarizes humanity against itself. Again, the inevitable devolution of power to the level of the individual may have serious consequences if we still live in a mentally ill society with a culture that is polarizing, exclusionary, and alienating. Maybe more profound on a human level, the problem isn't just centralized systems. The culture of the 21st century should stigmatize the us versus them framework. The urge to scapegoat, demonize, and polarize each other must change. Instead, we should face the enemy within. Maybe the right framework should be you versus yourself. Like Kyle mentioned, this is about you. It's about you and your own power and your own capacity for generating and perpetuating your own negativity. At the end of the day, there's one choice you can make that affects all the other decisions in your life. You can choose to bring down the people around you by perpetuating and multiplying your pain and negativity into the world, or you can accept the responsibility to transform your pain and negativity and suffering into radical positivity that inspires and lifts up the people around you. Radical positivity is more subversive than radical negativity. This is why we value and champion the Doge. The Doge represents the cultural values of radical positivity, fun, and inclusion, and not taking yourself too seriously, like Barbra Streisand. Programming these values into the code in combo with the concept of you versus yourself and the decentralization-centralization axis is a depolarizing and challenging framework that individuals can feel proud to identify with and gives us a sense of cosmic purpose. This is what will help us decentralize, depolarize, and unite each other to face the challenges and existential threats of the 21st century. Thanks.
We just have 3 more before closing remarks, then we're going to need everyone's help with a quick cleanup. Next, we'll be hearing from Damien.
Hello. My name is Damo, and this is one man's thoughts on the state of decentralized community. To speak about decentralized community is to speak of the interplay within and between every community on the planet. In terms of this movement, we're talking about the state of communication, collaboration, and trust between our communities and our ability or lack thereof to align the interests of every stakeholder in the world on an infrastructure and institutional level. Within the concept of aligning stakeholder interests lies a hope, a beautiful dream that this deceptively simple, seemingly dry ideal leads us towards true peace, abundance, and freedom for all, and that we finally have the tools to do it. So how are we doing? It's a bit of a mixed bag. On the surface, you'll find the loftiest of proclamations and the most venomous defamations, rabid speculation and rampant fear, uncertainty, and doubt, irrational exuberance and perfectly rational ignorance, as well as tribalism, infighting, conspiracies, and outright scams. Lots of scams. On the surface, this all seems to be about a radical techno-political movement, the future of accounting and database technology, the prime directive of profit, and or completely unintelligible. If you dig a little deeper, though, as many of us have, you may find something else. A spark, a glimmer, something emergent, evolutionary, and magical, something practical, necessary, and timely, something deeply human and aspirational, and most importantly, something that goes far beyond technology, cutting right to the core of who we are as people, how we see ourselves in each other, and our ability to create a world that brings out the best in us. All this to say that the state of decentralized community is an accurate representation of the human experience itself. And in this one man's view, we're right on track. I don't have a specific game plan to offer. By design, our movement is capable of holding many competing views productively. It's one of our greatest strengths if we choose to embrace it. What I would like to offer instead are some of the core principles that help me find my way in this movement and in life. Identify as best you can the world you wish to see and connect with others who share it. Work together, play together, if possible, live together. Bring your gifts and empower the gifts of others. Trust this process to produce magical results. Put similarities before differences and seek to understand and honor both. The mutual acknowledgement of our shared needs, wants, values, fears, and traumas is the foundation of oneness in action upon which a successfully unified world will be built. We don't need enemies to define ourselves. Our differences represent breathtaking diversity, our strengths, weaknesses, and unique gifts. The energy spent in adversarial conflict is destructive and wasteful, but also an honest reflection of where we're at in our culture, our history, and the points in our civilization where patience, compassion, understanding, compromise, and innovation are most necessary. When we drop the tribalism, we'll find that every community is holding something of value, some piece of the truth, and that it is possible to bring the tribes together. If our needs, wants, etc. are truly similar, our diversity of communities and tactics is our best chance at effectively and equitably satisfying them. Similarly, we don't need losers to have winners. A positive sum world game is at hand. All we need to do is iteratively design and embody it. This is as much about personal growth and maturity as it is about developing new technologies and creating new decentralized institutions. In turn, our technologies and institutions will only ever reflect the values we build into them and our current level of collective growth and maturity. So let's use the tools at our disposal to create real value by solving specific, quantifiable problems in communities of shared purpose. If the tools don't exist, we'll use the tools we do have to build the tools we need. We'll do this with everything, we'll rinse, and we will repeat. With these ideals and others, the world can truly work for everyone. It can be abundant, peaceful, playful, and take us to unimaginable places. So in the end, don't hate the players, don't hate the game. Play with friends, make new friends, and when necessary and agreed upon, change the rules. Let's enjoy this, fam. Thanks.
Next, we'll be hearing from Gio.
Hey everyone, I'm Gio. Can everybody hear me like this? Yeah. All right, just because I like standing, so I would feel like a little bit strange, like down here trying to talk in this. What was it? Oh, is it on right now? It's not. All right, cool. So I'm GeoStar, and I am here today, first of all, in utter appreciation and awe for everybody gathering here with aligned purposes and synchronistic timing, all here to literally just make the world a better place, because we need more meetings about that. Less meetings about, whatever it takes to get out of the mess or to prolong the mess. We need more meetings about stuff like this, about creating a new game. Like, I'm tired of trying to bend the rules. Like, let's create a new one and invite people to it. And so with this concept and understanding that there are so many people in the world right now, like us, working on very similar things on the blockchain or off the blockchain with very similar purposes, wanting to help the world become a better place and connect each other. We need more packaging done for the actual rest of the world to subscribe to what we want to see in the world. Right now, since there's so many different things going on, it's hard for the rest of the world to understand how to engage. We need a package, something to offer, multiple things to offer. But myself and some of the most powerful people on the face of this planet are creating something called Atmosphere, which is a first model to package all that we wish to see in the world, test it in physical space, which we're doing now at a 40-acre retreat space called Genesis in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and test it, build it with the most creative, innovative, passionate minds, hearts, and souls in the world that are all coming together for the same purpose and merging our efforts and ideas, testing it out, then beta testing it in the places that need it the most, starting with 500 acres in Uganda, and giving it to the refugees, to the people who don't have any systems right now, who don't have any place to turn to, who don't have a couch to sit on, like the people who are literally starving, who need something to turn to. We can offer them the best that we have on Earth. And when we do that, then we empower those who have been the most disempowered to skyrocket and leapfrog everyone else and inspire the rest of the world while we do it. So the Luminous Codex is basically came up as I was writing the white paper for Karma, which is a universal scaling asset token. because it's beyond universal basic income. Universal basic income doesn't take care of what people actually need to survive in this world, which is a whole entire asset class. And so the Luminous Codex is an experiential manual that explains the whole of atmosphere and everything within it. And everything within atmosphere is karma, like I just mentioned, the universal scaling asset token. Portal, a decentralized global member-zoned property and community matrix for, like I mentioned, the world's most brilliant minds to come together and real life test these systems, perfect them, and ever broaden them out in circles of access and all of this stuff. And the next thing is Orin Capital, which is the global crypto holding company plus a value generator and a global value pool. So within Orin Capital, it's a crypto hedge fund in some ways. It has a whole bunch of other offerings within that and generates a lot of revenue. And the Karma token is attached to the global asset value pool and micro equity positions so that everybody on earth who owns Karma can own everything in the global value pool. So while everybody, wants to put their stuff in something that's collectively owned, then you can do that and have micro equity positions attached to it so you actually have fractal ownership of things. So that's Orin Capital. Then there's Fusion, which is a global crypto mining operation tapping into geothermal energy to power the crypto miners, to accelerate the learning and the whole entire thing with the super intelligence. And then, so that's Fusion. And then there's Mergence, which is basically the branch to merge all of us into coming together and just connecting and getting all of, other companies, other things together and pinpointed and directed, because once we can direct our consciousness at something collectively and something specific, the more specific we can get with a thing, the more powerful it's going to be, and the more eyes are going to be on it, and the more that the rest of the world is going to join it. And the more welcoming we make it, the more, simple and sexy and fun and cool we make it, because everybody wants to be cool. That's just truth. Everybody wants to be cool, whatever that means to them. And if we, we're making now doing good cool. When you can incentivize giving, when you can incentivize, this kind of stuff is cool and awesome, and the rest of the world is oh wait, now that's cool, everyone, let's all do that, and we can get rewarded for it in crypto and all this awesome stuff, why wouldn't we do that? And then the more people that you get involved, that's a movement, that's the changing of everything. So I'm also going to be talking about this more tomorrow for a long time. I don't really know where, but just come up, talk to me if you have any more questions. I just want to pull all of you together, and I would love for everybody who's aligned and whatever part of this resonated to y'all, come to Genesis. There's a lot going on, and I'm really, really excited for this amazing abundant future, post-scarcity, sans transactionality, and love abundantly.
Next, we'll be hearing from Max.
That one. The social singularity is near. And as we approach this phase shift, things are going to get interesting. Society's mediating structures will continue to show their cracks. The media are increasingly less able to control the message. The education system, that bleak human assembly line, will give way to a kaleidoscope system of self-directed learning. The financial sector will eventually succumb to Satoshi's wizardry. And that great lumbering mediating structure, government, has outlived its usefulness. Politics as we know it will become obsolete. Currently, every 4 years, we cry our teardrops into the ocean and expect to change the tide. The illusion, the spectacle of elections will soon be dispelled. The favor seekers and power brokers will still be around, if but for a while. But the people are locking arms like never before. There will be convulsions. There will be bitter battles between hierarchies and networks. It might get worse before it gets better, but humanity is rapidly reorganizing itself around better rules and better tools. We will create better social operating systems using programmable incentives and new institutions. We will exit the age of ideology and enter the age of experimentation. We will find our niche communities and live in peace and pluralism. We will improve our collective intelligence. We will organize as human fractals. The future of governance will be polycentric and polyarchic. These two funny P words mean smaller, more effective jurisdictions will offer opportunities for exit and regulatory arbitrage. We will have to beg our masters a little less for good governance, as we'll pluck good institutions from the cloud. We will see just how curious a thing it was that law had been attached to territory at all, and territory is a product of conquest. We will find our kindred souls around the world and let others do the same. We shape our tools and then our tools shape us, said the famous philosopher Marshall McLuhan. We shape our rules and our rules shape us as well. And what is it we're shaping with this revolution? I believe we will embrace the values of a post-political era. We will become more tolerant, more collaborative. We will criticize by creating. We will start to see the flows in all things. We'll build systems, some of which are more trustless and some of which are more trustful. We will become more supportive of one another, extending our sense of community further and further out from our tribes, perhaps even to strangers. We will care for the most vulnerable on the planet. We will become the social safety net. All of this is possible if love is not just spoken of, but given. All of this is possible if we unite our hearts and minds, our aspies and our empaths. All of this is possible if we put persuasion before coercion. All of this is possible if we put mission before money. And all of this is possible if those of us in this sacred hall will take our dance of decentralization into the streets and then to the moon. Thank you.
If you could turn your mic off, please. We have one more speaker who could not make it in time. So we are going to open up to one person who thinks they are confident in talking about the state of decentralized construction, energy, and water. Please be bold. We must leave immediately after this. I would like to see a hand. A lot of us took on tough topics today. The state of decentralized construction. We'll be hearing from Armand.
Hello, everyone. My name is Arman. I volunteer for BC Sustainable Energy Association, and I also work as a building envelope consultant, so it might be a pretty good fit for me to talk about this. If you search Google for World Energy Organization's solar panel adoption and their forecast about it, you see a vertical line that is the actual rate of adoption, and you see a couple of horizontal lines that are the rate of predicted adoption every year. The reality is that even 2018, everyone is surprised by how low the price of solar energy is going. We see that when we give opportunity to small businesses, when we give opportunity for people to take the initiative on energy, the math and the predictions are off. They don't work. You cannot have the predictions that are even happening in 2018 applicable to any time in the future, because we just don't know what's going to happen. And this revolution is happening because we have new forms of energy that are becoming affordable. Just yesterday, I was reading about cooling radiation systems that are allowing the cooling systems to be more efficient by a couple of percent. because they radiate to the sky and increase the efficiency of the systems. We are going towards a direction that people are taking their own energy in hand, taking their own carbon footprint in hand. We have companies that are offsetting your carbon footprint even if you don't have access to sustainable means of energy that take your money and make it into sustainable energy investment. On the aspect of construction, we are seeing the same thing happening. People are making passive houses. People are using new technologies such as heat pumps to create net zero houses. Technical difficulties, yeah. It is very possible that by the year 2032, the mandate in British Columbia would be net zero ready homes. Means that if you are going to build a home, it has to have the energy that is consumed gathered from some source. Could be solar, could be heat pumps, but we are getting there. Passive house is a type of house that you can heat with a hairdryer. I just want us to think about all this for a sec and see that people who are just passionate about building, about construction, about energy, are coming up with the solutions to make things that are that were previously thought are impossible. And this is just going to go forward. This is just going to be a situation where big energy companies are going to struggle to compete with decentralized systems, are going to struggle to compete with microgrid, which has a strong applications for decentralization, where you sell to your neighbors. And we can just see this going better and better as the years go by. Thank you very much.
And finally, we will hear from Gary for our closing remarks.
Woohoo! So, an immense thank you to all of our interstellar delegates for sharing their time and wisdom today, for traveling so far in hopes of building a brighter future and connecting with so many others dedicated to doing the same. One question likely remains. Why the Doge and why Dogecoin? Why are we gathered here today, and what can be learned from this rare and beautiful teacher? Some years ago, within our local decentralist community, it was ascertained that Doge spelled backwards is EGOD, and that this was much, much more than a meme. Many have remarked on the divinity of this creature and the perfection of its pose, that the Doge is, in fact, the modern Mona Lisa. An incarnate divine teacher, the Buddha assuming its ultimate form. Within this community, we hold these truths to be self-evident. The time for debate has passed. What have we learnt from this divine deity, this perfect expression of beauty and beneficence? The Doge teaches us that silliness is next to godliness, that our powers of manifestation are truly infinite, and that love can and will conquer all. This revolution is not about efficiency. It's not about competition. It's not about negative vibes. It's about creating a culture that will incentivize and inspire everyone involved to live according to their own light, to genuinely express their deepest truths, embrace their divine programming, and catalyze the deepest connections possible. To cast off the shackles of centralized society and a culture designed to strip us of our individuality and render us fearful and divided. To actualize Doge consciousness in the hearts and minds of as many as possible. Imagine this face on every unit of the world's currency. On giant military parades, which are no longer military parades, but technology that has been repurposed specifically for partying. For waging peace and uniting the entire world in celebration. When I gaze into those eyes, there is absolutely no doubt that it's all within our reach. I truly hope you feel the same. The Doge teaches us that tribalism, animosity, and infighting must stop, that this revolution must be built on love and trust, that the new world must not mirror the old. This is an acceptance movement, not a resistance. A clarion call for all who know in their hearts that this world is not right and that it's time to make a permanent change. And it can be said with absolute certainty that as long as we're having fun, not taking ourselves too seriously, and dancing and laughing along the way, we absolutely cannot fail. These are the teachings of the Doge. This revolution is dedicated to radical inclusion, to loving our neighbors, and endlessly creating the best times ever. Let's continue this discussion and carry on our revolutionary work during tonight's decentralized dance party, a divine embodiment of what a decentralized future might not only look, but feel like. Delegates, please power up your boomboxes. If you have a boombox, make sure the power's on, please.
All right, everybody. All right, everybody.
Yeah,
It's
we're gonna run out of here.
clean up. Tell everyone to clean the station.
As we run out. Cleanliness is next to godliness as well. So yeah, we're gonna have to collect everything we got, especially that rocket in the center. And
To the moon.
that's pretty much it. Thanks for coming out. To my right is Tom, the leader of this party. And yeah, if your boombox is making funny noise, find a banana. They'll help you tune it back in. The frequency is 107.1.
Can the volunteers help us take everything down? Volunteers, help us stick around for a second. We'll take everything down. We can clean this place out in less than 10 minutes. I know we can.
So we're heading up to the art gallery. We'll be there for a while if you can help with the tear down.